Welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today we are going to do a feasibility test, which is to see whether it makes sense to continue building a project or to start building a project. In this case, we're looking at Demon Slayer, a very, very popular manga and anime series, and the thought process is this. If I were to get the manga, and here is just a random page from the very first chapter, am I able to summarize it? Can I use AI to summarize it and let me catch up 23 volumes, and I don't know how many chapters that is. Let's say 10 chapters. Oh, probably more than that. Let's say 300 chapters or so in total. Can I feasibly do it cheaply and accurate enough to move it up to date? Now, I'm not doing this truly unscripted. I did do this already, but I had a number of questions going in. Very first question is whether it would even be able to handle it. And so I threw it into ChatGPT, and I threw the first 5 pages because these ChatGPT or any of these chat interfaces seem to limit uploaded files to just 5 at a time. And so in this case, APIs will have a different limit, but in this case, I just asked it to summarize the first 5 pages. It gave me this long kind of, here's the characters, family dynamics, all of that, and I asked it to change it into a narrative. And here, it recognized a person, but it didn't really capture the story, because if we look at the first 5 pages I have here, it is a bit of a challenge. First of all, right off the bat, it is the first chapter. You don't even know the names at the start. Nezuko, I suppose, is the girl. You could see she's hurt. Next page is already a challenge for AI, because here it says going back in time. So first page is something happening, and then you have a narrative break that travels back in time. AI has to notice this thing and make that mental leap of it's a separate story chain now. And so you recognize who that person is, blah, blah, blah. He's doing some chores, and he's a hard worker. His family, he's going to the village, and his family is, saying their goodbyes, blah, 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 and come back soon. Very, very simple. There's not a whole lot happening, so you gotta realize, in 5 pages, there's not exactly a epic story there. But even then, ChatGPT wasn't able to recognize that time break, and is really just factually figuring things out rather than figuring out the panels and telling the story through. While that was disappointing, I threw it into Claude 3.5 and asked it the same question, and so it figured out the first page, second page, and again, just too much information, not exactly what I was thinking. And so I asked it to turn it into a narrative, and here, much better. Snowy landscape, Tanjiro carries his bloody sister, stark contrast to their once peaceful life. Flashbacks reveal a close-knit family, so it did pick up on that time jump. Tanjiro leaving to sell charcoal, concerns about his about the weather, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to join them. Like, all of that is accurate, and this is I'd say, accurate narrative capturing the first 5 pages. So, step number 1, if I upload these 5 images, is AI able to summarize it? And in this case, yes, Claude was able to do a good job of it. GPT 4.0 was not. This was terrible. But the important thing is, yes, there is the technical capability of doing it. The next one, hopefully you made that connection, is whether we could put, let's not say all 300 chapters, let's say 1 chapter at a time, or even 1 volume at a time. Are we able to pass that towards one of these AI models. You can't do it straight through ChatGPT, but if you're doing it through APIs, generally they have a larger and longer limit. I was a bit saddened because when I looked at Anthropic, there is a limit here. 5 for the web page, which we knew about, but only 20 for an API request. And if I think about the average manga chapter, it might have like 30 images, and at times it might go up to 60 or 70. Not necessarily Demon Slayer, but let's think about even comic books that reach 250 pages. So even though Claude did very, very well with it, it has a technical limitation. It isn't going to be able to look at all the pages at once. And so the one that I know has a ridiculous context length is Google Gemini. And this one, I haven't found an easy way to access it. I don't have a paid Google Gemini account yet. But if you look at it, maximum images per prompt is 3,000. Quite substantial. So this will easily handle, a chapter at a time and possibly even a whole volume at a time if we wanted to go through it. So we have different pieces. It looks like I like Claude a lot, and what I need to test is whether Gemini 1.5 Pro can have the same performance as Sonnet 3.5. Probably not, but will it do better than the 4.0? Possibly. I have been very, very impressed with Gemini 1.5 Pro, and I don't think people give it enough credit for what it does. I'm not going to go through it in this video. I think I have enough pieces to say it's possible, and we should try and build something around it. Namely because Gemini 1.5 Pro is the one that I need to build something for, and there's no easy way for me to test this like on ChatGPT. Last thing, when it comes to feasibility, we also want to figure out costs. This was a project we worked on many videos ago, just trying to figure out how to price out a prompt, a run through. In this case, I set it up basically. If you go 512, 512, this is what is ideal for GPT-4. They handle pricing for processing images in 512 megabyte or 512 pixel squares. And so in this case, this image is way bigger than 512, 512. 512, 512 might be like this. A square that takes a big chunk here. And so this would have to be divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 for ChatGPT. And you can imagine that causes issues in combining it together as well. Other providers have different ways of calculating. So Claude is just a flat-out formula based on the width and height. And so it has this very smooth increase in pricing, whereas GPT-4 jumps depending on 512 bucket sizes. Whereas Claude 3, if you watch me move the slider, moves very smoothly because it's a calculation. Gemini, on the other hand, worries me as well because it charges per image, but what it does is it down resolutions it to something like 720 by 720. And so looking at Demon Slayer, if we go 512 by 512, I'm just, approximating here. It's not the worst thing in the world. The text is big enough. It's not a very dense manga, but if you had a denser comic, some of this text might be really hard to make out. And even these, you're getting into a problematic territory. 720 by, let's say, 550 or so is much more reasonable right here. I think for the whole of Demon Slayer, these pages, it's going to work just fine because the text is large enough. But if you think about Western comics, the text is a lot smaller. There's a lot more text per page. And so Gemini might not do well because, as far as I know, there's no easy way for you to just say, I want to unlock more resolution. It just downscales it to 720 by 720 always. And so in this case, let's say it's 720 by 720. I'm aware that's a square and not a rectangle, but we go with 35 images. We're talking about a single chapter of Demon Slayer. And the prompt, I can't imagine it being more than 40 words or so. It's please summarize this story. And you know what, let's bump it up to 75 just to see. And your output, again, a single chapter is usually a fairly contained story. There isn't going to be a big epic, so I think 250 words is probably even more than what you need. So this is the cost for a single chapter. Now, if we use the cheapest thing available, which is either Haiku or Gemini 1.5 Flash, you get 0.5 cents a chapter. Let's say 300 chapters. What is that going to be? $1.50? Really, really good pricing. But in my usage, I love Gemini 1.5 Flash. It's been really good at smaller tasks. But I think writing a narrative, trying to combine all of these together is beyond it. So $1.50 would have been great. But in this case, probably not. On the other hand, if we do Gemini 15 Pro, 1.5 Pro, it's about 5 cents a chapter, a factor of 10. And so we're talking about $15. Probably more than I'd pay personally, but not unreasonable if it can summarize all of Demon Slayer. If we stuck with Sonnet at 8 cents or so a chapter, it's going to be like $25. Again, depending on how we scale and factor this, because I think the width would be a bit smaller. You're going to have problems technically because you're going to do 20 at a time, and that's going to be really, really annoying. So a bit of trade-offs here. I guess the project for us is build one with Gemini 1.5 Pro first, see how it does summarizing these stories, and then potentially use Sonnet instead and try and chain them together. Tell me the story of the first 20, then the next 20, then the next 20. And what's really nice about Claude 3 Sonnet is that it does have a really long context. So what I can do is give it the narrative from the last chapter or the last 5 chapters alongside these images to try and build it out as one cohesive narrative. And it really depends on how I want to build this out. But I think if Gemini 1.5 Pro works even close to as good as Sonnet, it just works so much better with 3,000 images all chained at once. Makes a pipeline much easier. Whereas Sonnet, I'm sure I could do 20 images, 20 images, 20 images, and just, it is a program, it is a script, and just run it over and over and use some clever prompting to combine the narrative and the paragraphs and so on together into one cohesive story. This might even be post-processing. Every 20 images, I come up with a paragraph, and then after I spit out all 300 chapters, chain all of those paragraphs together and ask Sonnet, can you create a cohesive story based on this all at once? I think we have our answer. I think it is feasible, and it's reasonably priced too. The price for these images have gone down a little, so it puts into reason. Not everyone has $15 or $25 to spend on this. I wouldn't either, but it's not it's not out of the question. And with Claude, it's very clear that it is capable of summarizing manga without a problem. I was very impressed with this particular result. So, I am still waffling whether it's worthwhile to do this, or maybe sit on the technology for a little bit longer before moving forward. But we will do yet another project next week, so I hope to see you around. Thanks for watching, and thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.